Today I'm going to do mosaic ornaments, and there are a bunch of ways you can do it. Today I'm going to show you 3 of those ways. I discovered while editing yesterday that I really had not filmed properly and have to redo. But it's going to give me an opportunity to go back and fix some of the things that I should have done in the first place. There is a really specific order if you're planning to do all 3. You should start with this because there are the largest pieces, and then once you start clipping them down and your bin has fewer large pieces, you're going to move into the smaller trees, because I'm using the pieces that I made the other day. And then finally you take the tiniest pieces to make this one. I didn't use that order and ended up having to cut more glass from the scrap bin to get the larger pieces. To create these, I'm going to use the pieces that I prepared ahead of time. So the only thing I need to cut is the base, which is 2.5 by 3.5. I'm going to use a brand new piece of Tecta for this because when I used the scrap glass, I got some pretty unusual reactions, and I don't want that happening for these ornaments. So I'm going to start with a new piece. You have all your bases. You want to draw a Christmas tree shape on it with Sharpie. And that's what you're going to use to keep everything where it needs to be. So I mark my center. And then just take it out to the edge of the glass. I'm going to use this outline to keep all my glass in place. I don't have to worry about the Sharpie. It will burn off in the kiln. With these 2, I start at the top, work my way down, put the hook in first. With this one, I start from the bottom and work up, and I put the hook in last. Because the trees come to a point, I will use the same type of hook that I used for the snowflake. This one, you would end up having it show on the back, where these, actually this one, slid over, and you still can't really see it from the front. And this one stayed straight up and down, and it's embedded in a way that it's secure, but you can't see it. If you use this bigger hook, chances are it would poke out on either side. I may want to make more of these because the hook is a little bit short. Oh, no, looks like it'll fit. And then I need to dig through here and find a nice point for the Christmas tree. Once you've got a nice point, you want to lay it over top of the hook, staying within the lines or close to the lines. And then you're going to find pieces of scrap, if you're doing this one, that will allow you to work your way toward the bottom of the tree. If you end up with anything that's a little bit too straight for this one, you're going to get rid of it. And the way you do that is you hold the clipper and you're going to twist as you clip. Hold it at an angle, twist and clip. We don't want the nice straight line that these clippers usually make. And then you just have to find pieces that are going to make a tree. Having a huge supply of pieces that you cut ahead of time really helps. Even after you've done that, you will still need to trim a few pieces because you'll find that the pieces aren't perfect. And I try to save all the bits. See, now this is not going to work, so I will either have to find another little tiny point to fit in there, or I'll have to replace that dark green. But let's see. And sometimes it's easier to work down one side, but you do want to keep it balanced. And you really want to keep, if you're going across, which I am, you want to keep it as horizontal as possible. So I use the grids of the cutting table. If you have graph paper that you can lay underneath, it does the same thing. You just want to keep it straight. Otherwise, if the whole thing were to sort of lean off, it would look pretty wonky. So I want to keep it fairly straight. You can have them all work from the middle down so it looks like branches. But whatever you do, make sure you've made a choice and haven't just sort of accidentally made them all sideways. I have a few pieces that are smaller pieces on the left side. So now as I work down, I'm going to have to make sure that I put a few on the right side. Otherwise, it's going to be very noticeable that it's unbalanced. Where there are spaces, I can go through and find little slivers, or I could fill it in with frit. I think these spaces are big enough, that one right there, that one right there, that I'm probably going to try to find slivers to fill them. But once you've got it where you think it's okay, you just want to make sure that your colors are sort of evenly spaced and everything is where you want it to be. This one I did not decorate. I just left it green. I may go back and put frit balls on top of it because it looks a little bit plain. I'm going to decorate this one with red frit balls. So I just need to go through and pick out the ones that will work. So in this case, I'm looking for the smaller ones. Except for the top of the tree, I think I will put a large red one. Whoops, wrong one. That's the glue. It's not open yet. Just try to evenly space them. And I have a combination of opalescent, or opal, I have a combination of opal and transparent. So I think I'm going to try to stick with the opal. And I start with the smaller ones near the top. And then work my way down to the larger ones near the bottom, except for that one at the very top. Okay, finally happy with that one. The next one, oh, I just lost one of my decorations. The next one I'm going to have to dig through and find all the largest pieces, the ones that'll stretch all the way across. And once I find all of those, I need to just build the tree. This one will make a beautiful bottom piece. So that's going to go in first. And I want to have, this one has a very clear pattern. I don't want necessarily that pattern. So I'm going to try to make it look a little bit more random this time. Because this one's okay, but not my favorite. For this one, I'm going to have to go back through my scrap bin because I need pieces that are longer. Now that I found or created all the pieces I need to go across, now it's just a matter of fine-tuning. I want as little space as possible between them. So these are pretty good. Pretty good. This one is not. And so I need to nip off, I have to decide. Because that way it leaves a little too much space. This way it's going to leave a little too much space. And it may be that that's just not the right piece. So I'll go in and see if I can find another one. Similar color, similar shape, similar size. Nope, see that? While the piece might work, the color is completely off. That might work if I cut the point off. I don't think so. And that's the next step, just fine-tuning all these pieces so that you have the spacing that you want. And if you end up with something that's not quite right, you just get hold of the clippers and remove it. And you want to remove it carefully because I've had a lot of pieces which were almost perfect, completely destroyed because I wasn't careful when I was clipping. And see, that one can't go that way because it leaves a big gap. So we're going to put it this way. And that bump right there is a little bit big, so I'm going to go in and take part of that bump off. And the top three are good, but I need something to go in that center part. I would love for it to be that green, but I don't think I actually have any more of that green. My greens are primarily scrap. I have a couple of sheets of like a Christmas green, but most of my greens are just scrap. So once they're gone, they're gone. So let's see what I can find to go in there. It should be one of the greens I already have. I really don't want to introduce another green. This looks like it's just aventurine. Yeah, it's just a really dark piece. It really should be something light because I've got a couple of dark values, light scattered between. I could get away with this really bright green. I could make this piece work, I think. That part needs to come off. Cut that center part. That's stopping it from fitting. And I'm thinking I'm going to leave it just like that. So I need to go back, glue it, glue the hook back, and then we'll move on to the next. With this one, I'm going to start at the bottom and pile them up so it has a lot of texture. And the pieces are not going to go side to side. They're going to go from the top down. And it gives it a really nice texture. To make this one a little easier, I put it on a piece of white canvas and I'm going to dump out all the little bits. And I realized when I was looking back and editing that there are a lot of times that I am running my hands through broken glass. And while I do occasionally cut myself, and I do have band-aids here, most of the time I don't, because I keep my hand very flat and I gently touch. So for those of you, including my husband, who thinks I should be covered with cuts, that's why I'm not. Okay, so with this one, we're going to start at the bottom. And we are going to take the smallest of the pieces so that we can build a layer. And then a next layer is going to be tilted, half on the glass, half off. And then the next layer, half on the glass, half off. When I'm looking at a lot of these pieces, I'm down to the bottom, but I still have a lot of fairly large pieces. So I'm going to have to be doing some clipping to get them in the right shape, to get them the right size. When you're doing this type of tree, you want it to be balanced. You want it to look scrappy. So you're not going to put two pieces of glass that are exactly the same right next to each other. And you are just going to start at the bottom, put a row, and then put a next row, and a next row. It's going to take a while. Especially if you're fussy. Everything takes so much longer if you're fussy. Because everything's on a slant, there will be a lot of stacking, restacking, organizing, pinching together. The glass is going to want to slide into the cracks. Support it as best you can, but just keep readjusting. Because everything is small, scrappy, and on an angle, you're going to get a lot of things that want to slide. So going back and making sure every piece of glass is as flat as possible, because those that are tilted will slide in the kiln. If it's a little tiny piece in the center for accent, you can do that. You can put it in sideways and it's not really going to cause too much trouble. But these bigger pieces really need to be fairly flat and not on an angle, going side to side. Of course, we are always tilting toward that top. As you get near the top, you need some long pieces to anchor together, but then you need to start using some shorter pieces. You also need to go back and make sure that there's no blank spot. And right there, there's a little bit of an empty spot. So then you can pick up these little tiny, whoops, not that one, that's dichro. But you can pick up these little tiny shards and slide them in, point first into that little wedge to fill that empty spot. And then sometimes when you do that, you end up with a spot on top of the one you just filled. And you just keep adding these little bits to make sure the tree is very full. And there's no obvious empty spaces. You also want to do an overview of the tree to make sure that it's balanced. I've got some aventurine green, which I absolutely love, which adds a little bit of sparkle, but I have to make sure it's evenly balanced. I have to make sure that that green that I just put in, which is the only piece, I have to make sure I accent with more of those pieces. So now it's just a little bit of touch up and the fine work to get you up to the point and insert the hook. And I think I'm going to finish up off camera because I need to get up close to it and I keep bumping the camera with my head. So I'll show you a picture of it when it's done and ready for the kiln. Although this one is not going to be fired right away because making the other one where I didn't film it correctly, I used up all my really good dichro dots. So I have to make some more dichro dots before I can fire this one. So I'm almost done. My plan is to top this tree with this dichro ball. But the top of the tree didn't get as thin as I wanted. So I'm going to put this little tiny square of tecta, embed the hook, put the ball on top of the tecta. Even a quick ornament takes me forever. So I've lost the natural light and now I'm working under this sort of harsh light, but we'll get it done. The final thing I'm going to do with this one is decorate it with ornaments of dichro dots. This I think I'm going to leave plain, but I might put little white frit balls for snow in the background. We'll have to see. Okay, these three are finally ready for the kiln. They will not get a full fuse because I don't want them to turn into mush. They are going to get a tack fuse. They should be ready to come out of the kiln, but it looks like we must have had a bad power day because they're attached, but they haven't got the type of contour fuse that they usually have. So I may refire them. Most likely I'll just leave them this way because I realized a lot of my filming from yesterday, I had the subject off screen. So I have to redo it anyway.